Job Fair Blues. William Hodges rushed towards the grand ballroom. He reached to straighten his tie knot. He held a leather portfolio in his left hand. 25 copies of his resume were neatly nestled inside. The suit he wore was newish. He'd only worn it twice before today. It was well tailored, but William wasn't used to the closeness of the fit, so he shrugged his shoulders and expanded his chest and fiddled with his tie knot, seeking a few extra centimeters of comfort. There were nerves as he approached the entrance to the ballroom. Those nerves doubled when he actually entered the space. You see, the noise of ambition is excitable and contagious, and it spread across that room in waves of mumbled but urgent conversations. Students dressed in their best business attire shook hands firmly and talked up their skills, qualifications, and plans. Some of them sought out internships or mentors. They were usually the undergrads, and they smiled and were wide-eyed. The juniors and seniors and recent grads were more sober-faced and diligent in their approach to the career fair. William was one of these. It was critical that he find a prospect in the ballroom that day. Whether an actual job or an internship, it would be in his best interest to report back home that something, anything, was on the horizon. To understand the amount of pressure that was on Will's back that day, you should know where he comes from. You see, he's part of a well-to-do black family. I mean, true-to-life African-American aristocrats. His father was an Alpha and a Mason. His mother was an AKA and a ranking member of the Order of the Eastern Star, and they were both very active in Atlanta's black social and philanthropic scenes. His parents were also alumni of Morehouse and Spelman, respectively, yet their son had found it difficult to identify a path that pleased his high-achieving parents. They had lowered their expectations for him several times over the years. William was brilliant but bullheaded, smart yet stubborn. He was an enigma to them. His father cast a large shadow, and Will was not willing to walk in the footprints his father had left at Morehouse, so his family had to compromise. The compromise was to get him into FAMU on the strength of favors his mother and father had amassed over a lifetime in corporate America. His test scores were very good. They placed him in the 98th percentile of high school graduates who took the SAT that year. But his actual grades were substandard, as was his participation in meaningful extracurricular activities. Nothing much changed when he stepped on the yard at FAM either. His first 3 years were rather uneventful, and he had tried his parents' patience throughout. He failed a few classes and had to retake them. His parents would arrange meetings for him and get-to-know-you chats with people of prominence on campus and from around Tallahassee. Will would forget to show up or never call these very important people back, and then the summer before his senior year at FAM, he got arrested, hit with a possession charge and a disorderly conduct citation, and those were the straws that broke the camel's back for his parents. They had had enough, and they demanded evidence to support the notion that they should continue supporting him. They gave an ultimatum. In order to continue receiving their financial support, he would have to graduate in a year, which would mean taking 2 semesters of 21 and 18 credit hours respectively. Also, he had to produce a job prospect and some semblance of a logical and traditional post-college plan of action. So, here he was, completely uncomfortable and totally unsure of what his future might hold. He was burnt out from hours and hours of classes and studying. He always knew college would come to an end one day, but what that meant was an open question. He figured he deserved the chance to just move back home and coast until an opportunity presented itself. Or maybe he'd stay in Tally and try to get into a master's program and stretch this thing on out for 2 more years or so. But now that decision seemed to be out of his hands. The ballroom was large and set up in a 10 by 20 grid. Tables were manned by reps from major companies from all over the world. They were there recruiting for myriad positions and skill sets. Each table had a line of candidates waiting their turn. The lines snaked around and merged together in weird ways. Will noticed that some students had several USB drives to pass out to recruiters. He figured their resumes and work samples were digitized in some cool-ass way. He looked down at his portfolio of paper resumes and felt woefully inadequate. Will didn't really have a focus at this fair. In fact, he was just there so he didn't get fined, so to speak. He felt a bit uneasy being around peers who seemed so much further along in their grown-upness. The career fair was a live-action representation of the rat race, and Will was bringing up the rear. He wandered around the outskirts of the fair, not daring to push through the snaking lines of eager future employees until... "Welcome! I'm so glad you're here. My name is Beatrice, and you look like you could use a hand," said a lovely young woman with an iPad. She paused as she scanned her map of the ballroom and table placements, awaiting the question that would come. What she got was, morning, Beatrice. Hey, I'm just kind of looking around, you know. If I have a question, I'll find you," Will said. "I see you don't have a name tag. Did you register?" "My name is Will, and no, I didn't. Kind of just a walk-in. Are you going to politely ask me to leave now?" "Absolutely not," Beatrice said. "What's your major, Mr. William Faircrasher?" she joked. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What'd you say?" Will was scanning the room and looking for an exit, so he had missed her attempt at humor. Beatrice was forcing him to engage, and he really wasn't here for that, despite his fitted suit and portfolio of papers. "If you can you can hear. What's your major, boy?" Pleasant Beatrice was gone, and she was replaced with B. "You're not the only one here who has no idea what they're doing. Don't be fooled by the steely-eyed determination and seeming short-footedness of these go-getters. The fact is, we all need some help to find our way, and I'm here to help you find yours." Will was reeled in by her conversation. He was silent, so she spoke again. "Now, what's your major?" "General studies," he replied sheepishly. "Well, what are you good at? What do you want to do? You have any hobbies?" As ironic as it sounds at a career fair, I'm not really prepared for the what I want to be when I grow up convo," Will explained. Beatrice put her iPad down and looked at Will straight on. She looked him up, and she looked him down. "You know, this might not be the place for you to find your path. No, this might not be the place." "My path?" Will chuckled. "Girl, what you know about my path? You just met me." She reached for Will's portfolio and tore a piece off one of his paper resumes. She scribbled something on it, and Will hoped it included 7 digits. "This might be a better option for you," she said, and handed the scribble to Will. "Douglas, Little, and Dubois?" Will read. "The Black Archives." "Yeah, there's another portion of the fair being held over at the archive. There might be opportunities over there that suit you better." "Oh, okay. So this is you politely asking me to leave?" Will asked. "No, this is me trying to help you change your life." Say less. Will loosened his tie knot as he exited the grand ballroom. He still carried his folio, but his grip was way less secure. He found himself almost skipping away from the exit Beatrice, God bless her, had given him an out. Technically, the mission had been accomplished. He had come, he had seen, but he didn't conquer anything at all. That realization slowed his strut. He had been headed back toward his car, but his mind lingered at the fair and on Beatrice. He wanted to have something good, something positive to say to his parents when they next checked in. Just once, could he not be the source of the agita? He reversed course and headed toward the Black Archives. He left his tie loose. The Black Archives was a museum. However, the building that housed the archives had also been used as a library, an art gallery, and a religious center. Famed philanthropist Andrew Carnegie had donated $10,000 to build the building that still carried his name, the first Carnegie Library built on the campus of an HBCU. It was meant to replace Duval Hall, Florida A&M's first library, which had burned down in a fire. Painted Southern Plantation White, or more aptly, Richard Allen AME White, the archive was a large and significant looking place. Four tall Greek columns greeted visitors and gave the place an air of intellectual sophistication. Will walked up to the noble old tome and almost turned back. It didn't look like it wanted to be disturbed. What time was it? Where was everyone? He didn't see anyone from the career fair there. He didn't see any person within 100 yards in any direction. It was him in the old building and his necessity to finally finish something he started. He had come this far, so he mounted the front steps, walked to the door, turned the handle, found it open, and entered, all before he could create more reasons to hit it to the whip. He was inside. He shook himself. He looked around. Glossy wood floors stretched from room to room. The rooms were themed by African American milestones in history. The Slavery in the South room and the African History room, for example. Inside, he found various knickknacks, bronze busts, and glass cases lined with shelves and filled with books and photo albums. Pedestals with plaques and portraits of past patrons were purposefully positioned throughout. Memorabilia of the university and the cultures that shaped it and rooted it to this community were collected, curated, and displayed. Surrounded by relics, Will was yet alone. Not another living soul around. He didn't know what to do, so he announced his presence. "Hello? Anyone there? I'm from the career fair." There was no response. He walked through the many rooms and decided to venture upstairs. Will always felt uneasy in places like this. For as much as he might be a tad self-centered, he had a keen sense of history. He felt inadequate when faced with evidence of the courage of his forebears. He came across a picture of students holding hands as they marched through a gauntlet of hurled insults and dogs set loose by snarling cops. He tried to reason with himself. If I had been around then, yeah, I would have been proud to resist and fight for what's right. Then another voice in his head reminded him that the fight had never been won, and in fact, there was more he could do in this present moment. He turned away from the framed photo and the convicting thought. "Hello, son. Can I help you with something?" The sudden appearance of the older gentleman had scared Will to death. He felt his body flinch at the shock and stammered through his lackluster introduction. Hello, sir. I was told that there was a portion of the career fair being hosted here." "I'm sorry, did you say career fair?" the older gentleman said. Yes, sir. A young woman named Beatrice suggested I come by here because they might have opportunities that suited my situation a little more than what's in the grand ballroom," Will poorly explained. Beatrice? Beatrice sent you here?" "Yes, sir. Looking for opportunities more suitable to your situation?" "Yes, sir," Will said with less confidence. "Follow me. William Hodges, is it?" "Yes, follow me. Come this way." "Excuse me, sir. How do you know? Come along, Mr. Hodges. Come along."
Wait, I don't understand.
Will was confused. How could this man know him? He knew his full name. He was confused yet also curious. He followed the older gentleman back down a winding staircase. Maybe the Beatrice girl had called ahead. Maybe that was how the man knew his name. He rationalized the entire trip down the stairs. No, it's got to be my parents, he thought. It's got to be. The staircase led to a room with walls lined with portraits. It smelled of old cigar smoke and toil. The older man stopped at a portrait of W.E.B. Du Bois. "Do you know who this is?" the older gentleman asked. "Of course, that's Du Bois," Will said with renewing confidence. "Of course, eh? What do you know of him? Give me one thing that resonates with you when you see his portrait and hear his name." Without so much as a pause, Will answered, "The concept of double consciousness, the idea that we, as black people, have more than one social identity, and therefore find it difficult to develop a sense of true self. Always felt like one of the truest facts of life to me." "And who exposed you to this true fact?" My mom. She was big into Du Bois and black philosophy as a whole when I was growing up. Talked about it all the time, Will said.
All the time.
The older gentleman began to walk toward another portrait. Again, it required no introduction. That's Malcolm
That's
X,
Malcolm X.
Will answered preemptively. Same question for you here. What resonates with you when you think of Minister Malcolm? Well, uh, before he was a champion for racial justice, my man was ice cold.
Ice cold.
Malcolm Little, aka Red, Will said. From hustling player pimp to iconic leader in one lifetime. Interesting take on the life of Minister Malcolm, the older gentleman mused.
Very interesting.
Follow me. There's one more portrait I would like to show you.
This way.
The two men walked a short distance and then stood before the largest portrait in the room. Its dimensions were physically larger than any other piece in the room, but the gravity in the room also seemed to shift and change when standing in front of it. Frederick Douglass, Will said, before he could be asked. Indeed, the older gentleman agreed. He almost single-handedly changed the way, he did. He single-handedly changed the way a black man could and should be perceived in white America. Indeed. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Will quoted Douglas's powerful observation about the struggle for rights and freedoms in America. You know, it's interesting you should choose that quote to recite here today. In many ways, that quote has shaped the purpose of my entire adult life, and it is the inspiration for our mission at Douglas Little and Du Bois, the old gentleman informed. My name is Luther Garvey, Esquire, and I am the executive assistant and chief operating officer for the firm. You've been on our radar for quite a while, Mr. Hodges.
Quite a while.
Wait, what? How have I been on your radar? Besides my parents and Leon County's marijuana task force, I didn't think I was on anyone's radar, Will mused. Your father is a prominent man, and your mother is especially exceptional as well. They move in some of the same social circles as the firm's partners. They haven't been shy about your shortcomings. But there's potential here, and we decided to keep an eye on your development. And recently we've decided to take a closer look. Who is we? I mean, the name of your partners are all dead men. Frederick Douglass, Malcolm Little, W.E.B. Du Bois. None of those guys better come walking through these doors, or else I'm out. Our partners always remain private, and they change over time. The name on the door will never change, however. We will forever be Douglas Little and Du Bois. So my parents arranged this? That girl Beatrice, she in on this ambush too?
Beatrice,
What is
where
this?
you at,
Like an
girl?
intervention type thing? You're very preoccupied with the acceptance of your parents. However, nothing in your personal or academic history points to any other time when you've been concerned about their approval. Well, things change when they threaten to turn the tap off, Will revealed. You don't live an especially expensive or costly life here in Tallahassee. You could manage to keep up your meager lifestyle all on your own. I believe there's more to it. Well, look, we're delving dangerously close to getting into an intimate conversation. And frankly, I just met you, Mr. Garvey.
Garvey?
Yeah, look, I was told there was a job here. So maybe, there's like a tour gig here or something. I'm here for a job, sir. Luther Garvey walked over to a gilded and velvet tufted parlor chair. He sat down and crossed his long legs. He wore an old-style suit, but cut to a modern silhouette. His pants leg slid up on his cross leg and revealed an intricate argyle pattern on silk socks. His cuff links were gold, and his initials were embroidered on his French shirt cuffs. The suit was 3 pieces, and the chain from his pocket watch gave him an air of wealthy black aristocracy. Well, consider this a job interview, Luther said. Will walked over and haphazardly pulled up an ottoman of some sort. He copped a squat. Okay, well, it isn't easy, living with my parents and my life.
Everybody got these struggles.
But my parents are my parents, and I'm not blind to the fact that they carry the mantles and legacies of their parents, and they carried the legacy of their parents, and so on and so on. Luther sat and listened, and Will spilled. I'm an only child. There's no one else to pick up those mantles. It's just me. No choice in the matter.
Who am I?
And who am I? I'm not them, that's for damn sure. I don't want to play the high society game. I don't want. Look, man, it's time for me to do something.
Real about it?
If I'm real about it, they've taken it easy on me. They've done their part, and this was all they asked of me. Go to this fair, get a prospect for a job, not even a job, just the notion of a job would please them exceedingly. So yeah, I'm seeking their approval on this. Will rose and prepared to leave. He reached to shake Luther's hand and thank him for his time. The lights went out.